that believe that having two O's in your company name is an ingredient for success. Especially in the past, I would have always considered Clovio being like a low-tech company, which kind of created competition for review sites like ourselves. Content was already being commoditized a bit more. Sometimes forces you to take a step back.
This is getting real now. How have you been able to expand into all these markets?
When it comes to hosting websites, it should be low maintenance as possible.
So you would say performance, uptime, and scalability are really important factors in building a media business.
I think content is still in the kingdom, is perhaps still the king, but doesn't reign alone anymore. Those are the power users of AI and what you can do in terms of coding. But even as like a starting content creator, AI is a big help. One of the phrases that I also like is from Jeff Bezos, I believe. Every day is day one. So it's always like a fresh start. You can fall back on your experience and expertise from before, but every day is also a new opportunity in that sense. Tech shouldn't be an obstacle. That was already the case before, but especially nowadays with AI, everything is possible, really.
For the first episode of Customer Stories by Cloudways, I'm having a conversation with Sander Delabie, founder of Clovio, a specialized digital media company. Sander founded Clovio in 2011, and today Clovio owns niche media brands like Best Reviews for product reviews, Esthesis for aesthetic treatments, and Advent Calendars Club for Christmas calendars. In this conversation, Sander and I talk about what it really takes to build a successful content and media company in 2026. Let's get started.
Thank you so much for being here, Sander. I'm really excited to talk to you about Clovio and all the wonderful things you've managed to build in the last 15 years. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be the first participant in this new series.
The pleasure is mine. I'm glad you said yes. I want to start by talking about how Clovio began 15 years ago. What was the idea back then? What thought did you have in mind when you started this with a very different content space that was there before a decade?
Sometime before Clovio, there was already my very first video game website. Around the age of 15, 16, I had an interest in video games, and that led me to build websites with reviews about video games, also news, which gave me the experience of building websites, learning about SEO and affiliate marketing. And that experience led me to do a bachelor in marketing. During that time, digital wasn't very big yet, so then I stumbled across a postgraduate in digital marketing communication. During that time, also I did a first internship at an e-commerce company where I learned more about how brands and really companies deal with digital marketing, e-commerce professionally. And during my postgraduate still, I established my company, worked as a freelance online marketer, and started building out what is Clovio today, starting with Best Reviews as like our flagship brands back in the day and also still to this day. And when it comes to content marketing, indeed, like in early days, it was simpler in the sense that it was mostly about SEO. YouTube was kind of coming up, but social media and influencer content and all of that wasn't really around yet.
So I take it that you were quite young when you started this. And also, did you start Clovio as a freelancer in disguise of a company, or did you start it as a company?
I was working as a freelance online marketer, not in disguise, so working for other companies, other brands. Okay. And then Clovio was really like a thing on its own, was a bit different from the other work that I did as a freelance online marketer. And at first also, there wasn't the name Clovio yet. I was mostly caring about the names of our media brands. For example, Best Reviews was a name that really I picked because it was general. It could really cover many different industries and verticals. And from that point, I always thought about mostly the media brands first and foremost. And then later on, also the company name Clovio came about.
Is there a story behind the name Clovio?
Many people ask. It was really an ID mostly, but the word also kind of refers to a clover, so that's also our symbol, our icon. There are also some people, especially back in the day, that believe that having two O's in your company name is an ingredient for success, because Yahoo, Google, one O after the other, but still that was kind of part of it as well. And overall, I think people seem to like the name Clovio. It's quite universal. People can easily pronounce it. So I think it's one of our better brand names.
Yes, it is a good brand name. And I think the two O's worked, didn't they?
It worked, yes. It comes and it goes, as it does also for the Giants with the two O's. But yes, it's always nice to keep this in mind.
I want to talk about your media brands now, Sandhya, because when I was researching about this, I realized how different they are from each other. Best Reviews is for all things reviews, and then you have Esthesis, which is meant for aesthetic treatment. So they are from two entirely different worlds. So why did you decide to go into these very different niches? What was the thought behind it?
Best Reviews came about because I had already been establishing review sites for specific niches, and I wanted something to be able to cover different verticals, different industries. So they're like taking the two reviews, the word best as in best VPN services, best microphones, and just made a nice name in itself as well. In the case of, for example, after Best Reviews, we had Feeling Lucky, kind of giving the idea of we help you in your luck as well, and your luck also finding the right casino. And we always go with like brand names that are universal, that can cover different industries. Esthesis is our latest media brand. It's been around for about a year now. And there in the past, we would look more at, for example, keyword volume for certain industries and things like that. With an idea like Esthesis was already more the case of looking at an industry overall and seeing that there was a lack of content for users, people who are looking for aesthetic treatments, but also for clinics, for example, that there weren't many opportunities to use contents. There weren't many content partners for them to work with. And then the name Esthesis also actually with the help of AI came about, and we felt it was a good name, relatable for both women and men, and something that covers really all of aesthetic treatments that we could think of.
I think simple names are the most smartest ones. So that's another thing I think you've been doing well.
The simplicity and still something that kind of relates to the products that you're covering themselves, but also not kind of pinning you down on one specific keyword or whatever. In the past, it was really about long tail keywords, also stuffed in domain names, but then it's not really brandable. It's not really fun.
Yeah, and you have to keep it fun.
Yes.
Well, so I'm a marketer, right? And my next question is more of a personal discussion that I also wanted to have with you. I want to know how true do you think the quote, content is king, is now in the current times that we live in? Because the entire focus of businesses now shifted towards making the content as appealing as we can to LLMs and AI agents, because that's where the traffic is. So we're not necessarily thinking about creating content for humans, which is what this phrase was based on by Bill Gates. So what do you think about this shift? How should businesses approach content in these modern times when SEO is shifting and the fundamental user search behavior is also evolving at a very fast rate?
I think content is still in the kingdom, is perhaps still the king, but doesn't reign alone anymore. And that's also kind of how we see it. Indeed, like with LLMs, in a way, if you want it to be as digestible as possible for AI, you would make a very simple, stripped down website, but then you kind of take away the usability for the user, person who would see you appear in AI search results and AI results. And you still want those people to have a nice content experience outside of their ChatGPT or whatever other AI tool that they're using. So of course, just like with SEO, there's those things that you need to take into consideration to make sure that you do well in AI search. But I think just like before, also you shouldn't create content just for the purpose of appearing in AI results. I think before already AI came up, for example, with the industries that we covered before, also with, especially in the case of Best Reviews, content was already being commoditized a bit more. I think with SaaS companies creating a lot of content for their blogs to promote their own products, which kind of created competition for review sites like ourselves with for example, content like how-tos and also listicles, kind of outranking us, like us being outranked by SaaS companies creating great SEO content. But I think also in the recent years, with everything that we're seeing with influencer content, overall companies outside of SaaS companies as well, creating a lot of content that a lot of companies see the value of content, and not just the companies, also the users themselves. I think in that sense also it brought us to be more creative with content, not just creating content for SEO, but really content that also is to the point, which I think is a good thing that came along with the advent of AI search. But so I think still the kind of pressures is always to kind of be more creative, think differently, and still also put the crown on the content itself in a sense.
Wow, that's a great way to put it. Have you been dealing with these shifts internally at Clovio? Are there any market shifts currently that you're obsessed with, that you're really working to mold your strategy around?
Yes, it's certainly a necessity, especially for a company like ours that was largely focused on organic search and paid search as well, which still gives us very good quality traffic, and perhaps even more so than in the past. So AI, SEO, that's still a big focus for us. But still it led us to think beyond content in a sense as well. So in a way we are more of a media company than in the past, I like to think. And we think of other ways beyond the content itself to provide guidance and be there and be useful for our users, but also our advertisers. I think already 2-3 years ago, we started to be more product focused rather than media brand focused, which led us also to think about providing tools for our users, providing additional services for our users to create as much value as possible. So for example, with Esthesis, we do lead generation in a sense. We have people come to our website, they tell us their specific needs, and then we actually already provide them personal guidance in finding the right solution. So we speak with each and every lead that we gather personally to gather extra information, which is then also helpful for our advertisers. So basically also adding higher value for both the user and for the advertiser, which is also part of the reason now why we're shifting more to higher value industries and verticals with our media brands such as Esthesis.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I now want to talk about the growth trajectory of Clovio. Looking back, when can you say you hit some significant growth milestones, when you thought, okay, this is getting real now and this is scaling, we're finally scaling? What was that moment? It could be many as well.
I think, yes, there were like some points in the past where you realize, for me, the first point would have already been when we had our first full-time employee, for example, contributing to our content. Because back in the day, it was my dream to be fully working on building websites, basically. So that quickly came about. And then having the first employee contributing with us. And then at the point where you have, say, like a web developer, online marketer, account manager, then you also feel like you're covering all the aspects of what it is that you do. During COVID, for example, as well, seeing how many cloud solutions were taking off and how we were seeing more visitors to the website, and website like Best Reviews really growing month after month. That was also a nice milestone period, I would say. And now recently as well, with our shifts to gathering leads, nurturing those with personalized guidance, is now a more recent kind of milestone and eye-opening moment where we see new opportunities and seeing new ways of being there for users and for our advertisers.
Right. And I think your team is still very lean. I believe it's about 10 people.
Yes. Like many companies, we always want to be like a startup, and especially with bigger shifts like the advent of AI, changes in SEO, for example. It's sometimes forces you to take a step back and reconfigure certain things. And also seeing, for example, with the use of AI, how it's more doable to create more content with fewer resources. And then when it comes to setting something up like Esthesis, a new media brand, new products overall, at those times you automatically think lean and kind of falling back on your experience that you have building other websites, other projects and products, and making it so that you're as light as possible to move as fast as possible.
Lean teams always do move fast, and I think that's a smart move. But how have you been able to expand into all these markets while keeping a lean team for 15 years now?
I think as a media company, that's the nice thing. That's the nice idea that I always had about media companies, is that you have a lot of sensors and touch points with different industries. And personally, also, I've always had a wide interest, especially when it comes to business, interest in different verticals, different industries, geographies as well. And I think it's also for that reason that we need to be and remain lean, to be able to also try new markets, try new projects, new products, to see what also suits us well with the expertise that we have, the experience that we have. Because many of the things that we learned in, for example, the gambling industry with our websites like Feeling Lucky, we learn about certain types of content, certain approaches when it comes to content, or also partnership-wise, that we can apply in other industries as well. And I would say with what we currently do and the experience that we have, especially with the tools that we have available nowadays, we should be able to set up a first pilot of a project within a period of 2-3 months, and nothing really, especially tech these days, shouldn't hold us back to try the waters and set up new projects.
That's right. If I can get more technical now, I want to know, what do you think it takes in terms of operational efficiency to build a business like Clovio? And I'm talking about a sustainable business. Tell me about the importance of infrastructure. How important do you think it is in the first place? And at what point did you make a decision to start taking it more seriously than you were doing before?
Taking things more seriously, so that began as soon as I started working as a freelance online marketer. Before that, I would be messing around with websites and spinning up websites very quickly as well. So then I think I was in my most lean period. And also at that point, tech wouldn't really hold me back, even though I was never a web developer. I always knew some basics of HTML, and over the years I've learned about more infrastructure as well. Especially in the past, I would have always considered Clovio being like a low-tech company. So even though we're in digital, we're innovative, tech should be a smaller portion, a fraction of what we do. And I think especially when it comes to, for example, hosting and security with a content website, it should be as low maintenance as possible. So it should really be even less than 1% of what you do. Now that we are in certain industries like the finance industry and health, beauty as well, with Esthesis, for example, of course, there we have very high security standards. And that is something that is a big occupation for us as well, and that we spend a lot of time and care for as well. But when it really comes to a performance marketing website, a content marketing website, it should be as easy and convenient as possible. And that's, for example, why a solution like Cloudways for us works really well, because many things come out of the box at a very high standard already. Speed and performance is there, security, backups, and ways for us to easily migrate our websites.
So you would say performance, uptime, and scalability are really important factors in building a media business?
Yes, especially like in our case as well, where we want to be able to deploy new websites easily and fast, and spend as little resources as possible on migrating websites, whether it's like launching a new version of a website, rolling out updates, launching entirely new websites. It should be as little effort as possible so that we can spend that effort on other aspects.
100%. Now we're moving towards the end of the episode, Sander. So I want to talk to you about what you think about the general digital media industry. So what do you think the future of digital media will look like in the next 5 to 10 years? We are already seeing a lot of changes happening. 5 to 10 years seems like a long enough time for everything to change.
Yes, especially I would say over the past 5 to 10 years, it's been those past 2 to 3 years, I would say, that have really caused a larger shift, not just with AI, but also really how influencer content still broke through further as well. So at this point, 5 to 10 years is really like a long time, I would say. But then at the same time, I think not much will change in the sense that creativity will only boom further, I think. So whether it comes to like influencer social media content, that will still be around and will continue to evolve. More people getting into content creation, smaller businesses, moms and dads, whoever else, like each and every person from every age is a content creator at this point. And as for digital media itself, I think also there, for example, in the tech aspect, more and more possibilities for each and every one of us to really be creative also with building services, tools, and tech being easier than ever before. But I think above all, also when I started my career, then was really the dawn of social media. And the key idea there of many was always also that humans will always play an important role. And even if nowadays we start to deal more with AI bots and agents for those first questions that we ask to customer support, for example, people will value the presence of a human being even more. So whether it's like this in a video interview, or whether it's to do a first outreach to a lead that entered on our platform for Esthesis, especially with certain industries like finance, health, beauty, where confidence and trustworthiness is important, it will be very valuable, I think, to always have a human touch point there and feeling the presence of a human being.
100%. I believe with more and more products now integrating AI in them, we crave for human touch more than ever. So completely agree there. Looking at all the changes that have already been happening, if you were to start Clovio in 2026, is there anything you would do differently?
So I like, and I think it's good that we had this media brand focus. So really building something, but then a media brand for the future. So thinking about content also in a long-term, evergreen kind of way. But most of all, like we've been doing over the past 2 years, I would like to be more product focused and think beyond the content as well, and see how we can add as much value as possible with the reach that we have, adding more value for the user, for our advertisers as well. So that leads us then to create tools, products as well that we can offer to our users to be as helpful as possible. And for example, also in conversion funnels of plastic surgery clinics, in this case, that we pretty much already deliver a patient ready to agree on a certain treatment on their doorstep, because we have that personal guidance. We provide a type of concierge service almost to the patient, and are really like more of a partner than before for those clinics, for those companies that we work with in lead generation and providing high value, warm prospects.
Wonderful. Would you like to give a final word of advice to our listeners? If there is anything that they should take away from this episode, what should that be?
Well, indeed, like kind of what we touched on before, stay lean and flexible. I think that is something everyone will say and that everyone wants. Even the biggest companies want to be startups. That's everyone's aspiration always, I think, to be as lean and flexible as possible. And kind of also thinking back of this phrase from Bill Gates, one of the phrases that I also like is from Jeff Bezos, I believe. Every day is day one. So it's always like a fresh start. You can fall back on your experience and expertise from before, but every day is also a new opportunity in that sense. Tech shouldn't be an obstacle. That was already the case before, but especially nowadays with AI, there's everything is possible really. And yes, like in that sense, trying to be high tech, but also low maintenance. So having a platform for yourself to scale quickly, building something that you can adapt to other industries, other verticals. I think, yes, that's kind of what comes out of this product focus, and always with like a mission of providing as much value as possible with whatever you do.
I love that, high tech and low maintenance. Thank you so much, Sander, for joining me today for this conversation. This has been incredible. I learned quite a lot, and I'm pretty sure our listeners and viewers will learn a lot as well.
I'm glad to hear. Yes, it was nice doing this, and yes, thank you for having me.
Stay tuned for more such amazing business stories we're going to cover in the upcoming episodes of the series. Thank you.